Welcome, and I want to talk about Jack Eichel. So this is his number 15 jersey from before he changed his number to 9, so it's a legit jersey. And when he changed his number, I said thanks, and I picked it up for cheaper than I should have been able to because he changed his number, which raised an uproar because that's what happens. Now, Jack Eichel right now is in the news a lot, and Ralph Krueger's come out and said yesterday he likes the anger. He likes the anger. I've also seen some people trying to blame Jack Eichel. I'm going to say right now I know that's the minority, and I have no problem proving that anybody who wants to blame Jack Eichel for the problems that Buffalo's going through right now, well, you can be forgiven for thinking that might be the case, but it reminds me of some old cases of Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. These guys are greats. They're Hall of Famers. Do you know what else? They were blamed for a lot of exits from the playoffs, failure to make the playoffs. And we've seen that with Ovechkin during his career as well. The Caps fail, that's on Ovi. And in this case, Buffalo, it's been a failure thus far, and I'm not going to put it on Jack Eichel. Eichel's currently 23 years of age. He's still very young. October 28th, 1996, and he's the number 2 draft pick in 2015, where the Buffalo Sabres did everything they could to tank for the number 1 pick, with a record of 23-51-8. And they got the number 2 pick, which at the time we were like, okay, good, because they're tanking for McDavid. They got Eichel, not a bad consolation prize, and then Edmonton gets McDavid, which let everybody go, and it's fixed because, of course, Edmonton wins it. But in his first year in Buffalo, the record got a lot better. 35, 36, and 11 in 2015-2016. Plays 81 games, 24 goals, 32 assists, 56 points. He ends up 4th in voting for the Calder Trophy. Pretty solid rookie season. His shooting percentage, 10%, 10.1 actually. His ice time, 19 minutes and 7 seconds. Corsi, 47.8. Yes, I'm going to talk about Corsi just a little bit, not Fenwick. Just because there's always those advanced stats people that want to get in there, and so I'll throw Corsi on the board. Sort of like, here's a bone for you, just to show I do pay attention to some of those numbers. His advanced stats have been getting better every year as well. So, in 2016-2017, their numbers actually get worse as a team, 33, 37, and 12 overall. He only played 61 games due to injury, 24 goals, 33 assists, 57 points. So he had a good year while he was playing. And his shooting percentage actually went down to 9.6%. Well, when you look at the goals scored, it's the same, even though he played 20 less games. So he was shooting more, which is good. 19 minutes and 55 seconds in ice time. And his Corsi 47.7. So staying about the same. Now, 2017-2018, the team, their record's 25, 45, and 12. He plays 67 games, 25 goals, 39 assists, 64 points. His shooting percentage went up to 10.2%. Ice time went over 20 minutes for the first time in his career, 20 minutes and 9 seconds on average per game. And his Corsi goes up to 49.7. Not bad. Modest improvements here. Then last season, 33, 39, and 10 was the team's record. So 2018-2019. 77 games played, 28 goals, 54 assists, 82 points. He finishes 24th overall in the league in scoring. He goes above a point a game for the first time in his career. His shooting percentage, 9.2%. His ice time, 20 minutes and 26 seconds. And for Corsi, I've got him at 51.4 on the board. That was his total as he goes above the 50 mark. And that's really what you're looking for there. Now this season, the team's record was 30, 31, and 8, and they just keep trending in the wrong direction after a fast start. 68 games played, 36 goals, which was 8th overall in the NHL this year. 42 assists, 78 points. He was top 10 in scoring this year, finishing 10th in scoring among the National Hockey League players. 15.9% shooting. So his shooting came around this year. And whether that 15.9% turns out to be an outlier or not, that's the question mark. 22 minutes and 6 seconds of ice time per game, and his Corsi is at 51.5. So the nice thing to see is that the Corsi number doesn't really change a whole lot, even though he's playing about 2 minutes more per game. Well, about a minute and a half more per game. So that's nice to see. Now his overall numbers in 354 games played, 137 goals, 200 assists for 337 points. 10.8% shooting, so the 15.9 is much higher than the career number, but you look at him, he's 23. He should be going into his best years right now. This is where he should be going into his absolute best years. 20 minutes and 19 seconds on average. 49.6 is his career Corsi number. Now, his career on faceoffs, that's where things are kind of 43.7% on faceoffs this year, 46.83% on faceoffs. So if you want to find a hole in his game, you could say, well, he doesn't win as many faceoffs as you'd like, which would be accurate. And at a point in his career where he's 5 years in, this is probably where he's going to end up. He's probably going to be a guy who's a little bit below 50% on his faceoffs. But the points total tell you he's pretty good at getting the puck back. 9 game-winning goals this year. I don't know how many more he has to score. That's 9 out of 30. So about 30% of the team's wins are a result of goals by him. Eichel was a +5 this year, if you like plus-minus. Skinner was a -22, Olofsson -1, and Reinhart's a -15. Now, what's interesting in these are 3 players that get associated with Eichel. Skinner's -22 may very well be why Eichel's not on Skinner's line, and we can get into that debate and get into the weeds on it, but it may very well be that Skinner's defense is bad and it drags down Eichel's numbers and Eichel's game. And when you look at the points per game numbers, he was better this year than last year. Everybody was complaining about Skinner not scoring, and you got to throw him on Eichel's line. Maybe he drags Eichel down. That's something that I haven't seen anybody considering. Now, Skinner's goal numbers tell you he's going to bounce back next year. His goal numbers over the last 4 seasons, including this one, 37, dropped to 24, goes to Buffalo, gets 40, and this year 14. He should bounce back. And his plus-minus numbers fluctuate just as wildly. So that tells me that he just has had 2 miserable seasons that have followed 2 really good seasons. So he should have a good season next year. Olofsson, he's 24 years of age. And I've seen people say, well, Olofsson's an elite goal scorer. He had 20 goals in 54 games this year. Olofsson's a good goal scorer. I don't put him in elite category. And not only that, he got off to a really good start, and then it cooled off for him. And the power play goals cooled off for him as well. So yes, he's a good goal scorer, but if he's going to be looked upon as being the guy that will get the Buffalo Sabres into the playoffs, he's not going to be that guy. He's not a Draisaitl for Eichel, for lack of a better terminology. Reinhart, with his -15, the other thing that you notice with him is his points are starting to balance out. So his points per game over the last 4 years, 0.59, 0.61, 0.79, 0.72. Why does that matter? That matters because if you're a team going up against Buffalo, you really just kind of have to worry about Eichel, don't you? I mean, yes, Reinhart's a good player, but if you can shut Eichel down, you've probably got it all figured out and you're probably going to beat Buffalo. The one thing with Eichel this year that stood out, other than him being a top 10 scorer in the NHL, that definitely is a standout for him. And over a full 82-game schedule, he would have crossed the 90-point threshold for the first time in his career. The thing with Eichel that stands out to me is when he's on that puck and he decides, I'm going to the net, I'm taking it, good luck stopping him. He is one of those few guys in the league, and I've talked about this with guys like McDavid, Draisaitl has it, Barkov in Florida has it, and it's this beast mode attack sort of mentality that is so intimidating when you see it, where it's like, and they're not going to stop him, that's going in the net. Or at the very least, if he doesn't score it, he's going to dish it off, and whoever he passes the puck to is going to have an easy way to drive it home. So there is a level of play Eichel has that it doesn't feel like anybody else on his team has, that there's nobody else there who's capable of reaching that level. Now, as impressive as that is for Jack Eichel, this might be part of the reason for his frustration. He may be looking at Edmonton and going, hey, Draisaitl hit that next level, and now McDavid and Draisaitl together, they're having a chance to make the playoffs. They're in the play-in round. We're not. And again, Buffalo fans can say, well, we should be in there if we'd played those games. Montreal might not be in there. I think that glosses things over, and I do think that with the play-in round that we're seeing, it's going to gloss over some pretty crappy seasons for some teams. Looking at you, Chicago, I'm looking at you, Montreal. This is going to gloss those poor seasons over, having them in there. And I'm thinking it's a good thing for the teams that didn't make it to not have that, well, hey, at least we're in this. We can salvage something from this season. It forces them to ask some harsh questions. Now, Jason Botterill's sticking around. He's not going anywhere. The thing is, losing Ryan O'Reilly is something this team's never really completely dealt with. And here's the thing. The year that O'Reilly left, it's not like they had a good record. They didn't. And O'Reilly and Eichel played together plenty, and they weren't winning. So it's not like Buffalo went, this guy's a winner, we have to keep him. And at the time, the trade looked not too bad on paper. It just turned out to be really bad in a year's time when O'Reilly ends up winning a Stanley Cup in St. Louis. And he found something in his game in St. Louis. Now, does Eichel see O'Reilly do that and go, I want to do that? Because for Eichel, we're going into year 6 of his career. Your prime years don't last for that long. Your prime scoring years don't really last for that long. And it's definitely a video I can do at some point. That's a madness video if I've ever heard one. Where I can try to measure elite scoring levels and how many years guys are at that elite scoring level. And whether I would say being top 10 or top 20 in points per game in the NHL, or however I want to find it, you don't last that long at that level. For Eichel, he may be saying, I feel the best I've ever felt. I think I'm playing my best hockey. This team isn't getting better. Because if you look at the overall numbers, they're one game below 500 this year. Yeah, they were one game below 500 in his rookie year as well. And they bottomed out that third year for him, but every other year has been basically the same. We're good, we can win our share of games, but we're not a playoff team. And eventually, that wears thin. Now, he's named captain October 3rd of 2018. I've seen this leveled at him as well. He's the captain. He needs to just go out there on the ice and lead. Okay, well, how's he going to do that? Because Casey Mittelstadt didn't make it this year. 31 games played, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. So if we're going to say, well, Eichel has to be better, so then is it his fault that Mittelstadt's development was stalled and that he regressed this year? I would say no. And I think the expectation on a guy being the captain, he's not going to single-handedly turn the team around. Yzerman didn't. He had this guy in the blue line named Nick Lidstrom. He was pretty good. He had this Sergei Fedorov guy who was the number 2 center. He was pretty good too. And so, and for Sakic in Quebec and then Colorado, yeah, he had Forsberg right there with him. So, there isn't really for Eichel, there isn't a Forsberg, there isn't a Fedorov, there isn't a Draisaitl, there isn't a second guy that you look at and say, there's the other guy who's going to take the pressure off of Eichel. Now, when you look at the team stats over the 5 years he's there, let's go through it. How about offense? Okay, 201 goals, that was 26th. 201 goals, that's 25th. 199 goals, that's 31st. 226 goals, that's 24th. And this year, 195 goals, that's 21st. This year, they've had the best standing when it comes to goals for, and it's 21st in the NHL during his tenure. Now, goals against, if we're going to say that the defense has anything to do with Eichel, okay. 222 goals against, which was 16th in his rookie year. Then 237, which was 20th. 280, which was 29th. 271, which was 23rd. And this year, 217, which is 17th in the NHL. So they were 21st in goals for, 17th in goals against. And there you go. We can point to Buffalo's goaltending and say, so where's that great goaltending performance been? Robin Leonard had a miserable final year in Buffalo. Went on to have a pretty darn good season with the Islanders right after that. But again, is that on him? Is that on Eichel? Is Carter Hutton not being a starter, like a 1A starter, is that on Eichel? Is Ullmark, if he has a bad... this is where it gets silly when I see people saying, well, Eichel's got to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. He is part of the solution. He is the solution. The problem is they haven't got anything else to back him up. And that's why I was kind of surprised when they kept the GM around after all this speculation swirling. But again, we're going through, a pandemic, and odds are the team goes, well, we'll just keep everything as it is and not make any big changes this summer. I don't know how this ends. I don't know that it ends with Eichel being in Buffalo. It needs to. Buffalo desperately needs Eichel. He is that franchise player that they needed when they tanked in 2015 to get a shot at him or Connor McDavid. They need for guys like Mittelstadt to hit. They need Dahlin to take that next step, for Dahlin to become the Nick Lidstrom for Jack Eichel. And I hate to do that to Dahlin because Nick Lidstrom is just that next level. That Lidstrom, Ray Bork, whoever you want to put in that upper echelon. That's what they need. And they need better depth. They need a better top six. When you're adding Frolik, when you're adding Simmons, when you're adding guys who aren't going to really beef things up, it just leads to confusion for fans who are saying, what are we doing here? And probably for players as well, who are saying, you know what? We need to figure this out. We need to get better, and we need that elite level player. And so for Buffalo, at the very least, if they can win the draft lottery, that can turn things around. They need a Lafreniere. Because, again, if you look at great teams in history, they always have a great second player. It's not one guy. There's no such thing as a team that one guy just drags them there unless it's a goaltender. And even then, that goaltender usually has somebody who's providing key goals at key moments to allow them to get all those victories. Because if you don't, you're Jonathan Quick against the Vegas Golden Knights. Right? So even a goaltender needs some help along the way. And for Eichel, the guy just needs some help. And, you know, when I see people throwing any shade at him at all, like, yeah, you just go out and play. Stop your whining. He is going out and playing. He's playing more time now than he ever did. This isn't on him. And honestly, you know, if people want to make excuses for the Buffalo organization, go right on ahead. It's 9 years of futility. What's another 9 years? It's another decade. Just stop with 9 years. Just make it a decade. And this is coming from a Canucks fan who's watched a half a decade of things falling apart, and now it looks like the Canucks are you know, they're in it technically with the play-in. We'll see whether or not they get past Minnesota, but at least they're playing important games. And at least for Vancouver, the record has continued to trend upward. It's been a slow trend upward, but they're getting there. And for Buffalo, it just feels like they're treading water. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And I wanted to do a bit of a deep dive with Jack Eichel because, again, when I see people saying, Eichel needs to just be quiet, it's Eichel's the problem. Eichel is not the problem. He is the opposite of the problem. That is just no. That's a giant no. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.